get this started. We'll call the meeting to order at 7:02 p.m. For those of us who didn't understand the 1902 comment, I apologize. As I already said, Judy will not be present this evening. She has a personal thing to attend to, so I'll be taking her place for the evening. So the first order of business is a roll call. I think last time it worked best. If I'll just read the names and then just reply if you're here. Obviously, we know who's not. So Judy's not. Myself is present. Garth, I don't see Garth. Haven't heard anything from Garth. Angie is here. All right. Jesse?
Yes, I'm here.
John Kopek? Sorry.
Yep, I'm here.
All right. We have Bill Folletti.
Here.
I did get a note from Judy asking to seat Hugh in her spot, so we will seat Hugh for Judy. And
I'm here.
Garth is not present, so we'll seat Christina for Garth if everybody's okay with that, and that'll complete the board.
Now, just to avoid the confusion that we had last time, doesn't the board have to vote to seat me because Garth?
Well, the information we had is kind of mixed, so yeah, we can do that if you like. So I'll just call for a vote if everybody is in favor of seating Christina for Garth. Say aye.
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 Hi.
Aye. Thank you.
And if anybody's opposed, I think that was everybody, right?
Yep.
All right, so it'll pass unanimously.
Do we need to vote for me just to keep the record straight, or does Judy's letter
No,
cover it?
because she sent me a written request, so that
Okay.
covers that. Yeah.
We're good, thank you. Didn't want any questions after the
Yeah,
fact.
no, that's a fair question. So, next is communications. I have none at this time. Public comments. Is there anybody there from the public? And Val, you know, I apologize. I should make sure you can hear everybody okay. Herself and she won't talk. Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure. I apologize. I'm new at this. I don't even see anybody from the public. So unless Valerie has something, we will move on to approve minutes of the regular meeting from January 13th. Everybody should have got them twice, I think, if I did it right. So first, before we discuss anything or make any changes, I'll entertain a motion to approve them.
Move to accept the minutes.
Motion from Hugh. Do I have a second?
Jesse Burnham, I'll second that.
Second from Jesse. And that'll open up discussion. I'll just start. I do have one correction, and that is, I don't have a printed copy in front of me. In the paragraph, if I disappear, I apologize. Let me pull them up. In the paragraph under communications, third line down where it says this email will be attached to the meeting minutes, that is going to be removed. That is not going to happen. The actual email will not. There was other information contained in there. That's all I had. Does anybody else have anything?
I
Go
have
ahead,
a
Christine.
couple. I have a couple.
Oh, shut up.
What?
I've really had it.
What just happened?
Okay, go ahead, Christina.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I have very few. There weren't many typos. So under communications, Sherry Much. I believe Sherry has 2 R's in her name. SHERRI.
Yeah, we can check that. Yep. Valerie, careful. Valerie, there's something in the background on yours. You're unmuted. Mike, maybe you can mute her out because she's got some noise in the background.
No, I don't. There's no noise here.
It's coming. It says that it's got something on my screen. It says it was you, but maybe it's just me. Oh, go ahead, Christina.
Okay. And then under number 9 on the last page, under remarks for good of the board, the very last line, it says, and she also thanked all the town who have been such a help to both Paul and her. I just think that what probably is meant there is
Yeah.
the people at town hall, right? She was
I,
thinking.
I would like to say something.
Hang on, let me look at what she's talking about. Yeah, she's not here to ask that question too, so,
It might have been the word staff between
If-
town and who.
oh, okay.
Town hall staff.
would-
who.
I would like to speak for a second.
Okay, go ahead. Is that all your corrections, Christina? Is that the
There's-
only two?
There's just one more.
Okay,
for-
go. Yep, go ahead.
Just that on the last vote, Garth actually abstained.
Right, he did. And okay. Yeah, he did, because that was kind of a not funny thing.
Right.
Under
That's
the
all I have.
adjournment, are
Yeah,
you speaking the last motion under the adjournment? All right, I would like to make a comment.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, I just want to say that the minutes that I wrote were changed by Mr. Varka, which is fine, except that the error about town employees on that last paragraph under number 9, in my original writing, I did have town employees. I went
Okay.
back and I listened to the minutes of the meeting about 3 times and spent all day Friday doing these minutes. And then all the discussions were completely removed. So there is no selectmen's update, but that's okay if that's the way you want them. But some of the errors were not mine.
Understood. Yeah, it's possible that when I removed the discussion part, I hit the wrong key and took out too many words. So we can add the town staff or employees back in. I can look at it, but we'll just put it as town staff to make it correct. And then that is correct. Christina, you're correct. At the last motion, he did abstain from even the adjournment. Because I remember talking about that. And yes, Valerie, you're correct. We removed a majority of the discussion part because it was causing an enormous amount of confusion. And after attending several CMM seminars or CCM seminars, whatever one of the things they talked about in length was making the minutes reflect what actions were taken and not so much what is said. The discussion is part of the meeting, but it doesn't have to be recorded. And another thing that came up was because now with these Zoom meetings and hybrid meetings, there's copies online. It has to be per the statute. Most people, and in fact, most of the inquiries I'm getting from people are because they're watching them online. So I think if they want to hear the full discussion, they can do that. But that's the meeting minutes are supposed to be about what is actually done as far as businesses. So,
Well, it was stated at the meeting that
Yep.
a report would be added to the agenda.
right, no, that is correct. That's correct. But we're not going to do that. So we have to correct the minutes that we're not going to do that. So we do have a motion. Does anybody else have anything to add or change? Then hearing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor of approving with the corrections? Oh, go ahead, Hugh. Oh,
Aye.
okay.
Aye.
Jesse
Aye.
Burnham, aye.
Actually, I gotta think, who was not seated for that meeting? Actually, Hugh and Christina were not, correct?
Correct.
So Hugh and Christina would have to abstain from that.
Okay, Christina abstains.
Okay. And Hugh, you'll have to abstain.
Okay.
Yep.
I abstain.
All right, under new business. we'll just go with the way we have it written. I thought Mr. Kalinowski was going to be here. I didn't know they wouldn't until today. So I was kind of giving him an opportunity, but we'll start with fiscal year 2022, 2023 financial management policy. Everybody should have gotten a copy. It is exactly 100% the same as last year's and the year before that and the year before that. There was no reason to change it that I could see, and nobody had any other input. So unless there's other input, and before we discuss it any further, I'll entertain a motion to accept it.
I make a motion to accept the Town of Ashford financial management policy for, what is it, 2022, 2023?
Second, Angie DeSanto.
Does anybody have any comments, questions, discussions? I know Hugh and Christina are new, so I know Angie and Jesse have seen it before, so it shouldn't be anything new to them. Bill, any?
Looks fine to me. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
All right,
I agree.
so if nobody has any questions or comments, we'll call the motion, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Christina Davis, aye.
Aye for me, so motion will pass unanimously. The next item is the 22-23 budget policy. Again, just for before we get into it, it's identical to the previous 2 years, with the exception of the dates. And actually, we are behind on this because one of the dates has already passed, which was January 12th, for the budgets from departments to be turned in. So I'll entertain a motion to accept that as sent out.
Angie DeSanto.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, no, I got you, John. John Kopek with a second. All right, is there any discussion about this? And it's possible, double check the dates real quick. I had to transcribe them over, but I think I got them all right. Some of them, there's some in the paragraph regarding Region 19, there's a lot of dates. So a lot of that hinges on them. But basically the budget policy just reviews what we intend to do during this budget cycle.
Do we have to change that January 12th date?
I don't think so. Everybody's got it. I think all the departments got their stuff in. They didn't get it in on time, but it is in. As far as budget goes, yeah, I thought about that too, Hugh. But I actually looked and I think it was the year before last, the same situation happened where they approved the policy after the date just because of the way the meetings went together.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
you know, Bill, do you have any concern with leaving the January 12th date, even though it's January 27th?
Not at all.
Anybody else have any questions? All right, so all those in favor of, excuse me,
Aye.
approving the policy as
Aye.
written?
Aye.
Aye, so any opposed? And that's unanimous. All right, now we'll get to the Selectmen's update, and I'm sure Bill knows we did that on purpose so we can roll right into the next item. You're up, Bill.
I appreciate it. I'll refrain from comments regarding the next item, just to try to make this as brief as possible. Just for your board's information, not necessarily something that you'll be taking up or not, but I know there's a lot of interest throughout the town. Over the past 2.5 weeks or so, we have been dispersing both N95 masks to the towns on a townwide basis, and also the test kits. To date, we've dispersed over 600 test kits. we initially, over the first week and a half, after running into a bit of a glitch with the state not delivering when they said they were going to us, during that first week and a half, we dispersed about 540 test kits. Of course, our population is in the area of 4,200 residents. So it was a bit difficult. Originally, our instructions from the state was to disperse them on a first come, first served basis. I kind of monitored a couple of towns. One of them in particular was a sister town of ours, Willington, that dispersed them on the Sunday before us. And they had a line over 2 miles long waiting there. And many of the vehicles, particularly the ones at the front of the line, waited for 2 or 3 hours at a time, from what I understood. And they also got a proportionate small share of their population. And what turned out was half of the cars that had been sitting in line were not able to be dispersed, any test kits and everything. So I did a meeting, an emergency meeting with our emergency management team, which consisted of Mike Gardner, our emergency management director, Joe Kalinowski, our public works director, Tom Borman, our fire chief, and myself. And what we decided at that meeting was to come up with a program that we would disperse them in a much different way. And the focus was to disperse them to those people we felt were most vulnerable. For instance, we dispersed kits to the senior housing. We delivered them with the masks. We did the same to the senior center, to the Babcock Library, a small supply with masks. We hand delivered a small supply of test kits and masks to each of our churches in the area. We worked with our public works department, who hand delivered, after we got a list from our social service department and our senior director, of shut-ins throughout town. And we contacted as many as we could get a hold of. Those that wanted them, which was probably about 95% of them, we actually had our staff hand deliver masks and test kits to those individuals. The remainder that we had of the original disbursement, what we did, and we advertised it on our social media sites, being the Ashford website, the Ashford Facebook site, and also our TextMyGov site, which incidentally, we're having more and more people sign up on almost on a daily basis now. And I would encourage all of you, if you haven't done that yet, I would suggest you do it. But anyway, that's how we advertised. What we asked people to do was call my office. And we had several questions. One, we verified that they were a resident. Two, we asked whether or not they were experiencing COVID symptoms. Another question was, have you been exposed to COVID that you're aware of? And the third was, are you immune compromised? And for the most part, unless people had other situations like they were caring for an elderly neighbor or relative or visiting one, what we did was we had those people come down to the town office building, park in front of the building, and we hand delivered kits to all of those people, to a point where we went through our initial, over that week and a half, distribution of 540 kits. We just took on this past week an additional delivery of about the same number of kits. And the funny part about it, because of some litigation apparently that had been filed against the state, they developed almost a mirror image of what we had been doing for the prior 2 weeks. The only thing that they added was a category there that we had been recognizing of people who had disabilities. So anyway, I just share that with you because I want it to be out there on a town basis. We do still have kits available. We're still putting bulletins out on our social media sites. Right up until yesterday, we have been dispersing them, and we'll continue to until we run out again. But I thank everybody with the town, our personnel and everything, should be credited with a job well done on it. And I really appreciate all the help we got. The budgets have been coming in. We're working closely with Cheryl. I know has been a very busy person, with the exception of one or two that wasn't submitted to form. I think everybody's is in. We're hoping to be able to stay with the schedule that we worked out with you folks for the upcoming year, and of course the upcoming budget. And of course the goal is to get this done in time that we can go to referendum at the same time that E.O. Smith does. A couple of things regarding our E.O. Smith budget, which I think is good news, particularly from your point of view, is that we were of the understanding that this was going to be our year, that we were going to be up at bat. And part of that was based on the fact that we were showing at the time that we were going to have an enrollment of about 196 students. Well, I've been working closely with our local superintendent to try to fine tune those numbers. And the last number that we were able to come up with was, instead of 196, we're at 177. So the implications of that, I think, are hopefully going to reflect in a savings of what we were all anticipating was going to be a major hit with our E.O. Smith budget this year. So that's still maturing, but I'm optimistic that we're heading in the right direction on that. Paul, that's about all I have right now, other than, going through what we're talking about with the next item on the agenda. I'd be happy to take any questions that anybody has. I do. One other thing that just came to mind is I was saying that, Christina, you had mentioned some concerns, and I know it's been an active subject on the social media sites. Our assessor has put together a summary with an explanation of reval, what it means, the implications, and all of that. We've been very busy down there, and was hoping to have it up on the website for this weekend, this past week. I do anticipate before this time next week, we'll have something that will be on our website. People can go up and reference. We have been doing research on other municipalities. I happen to be talking with one of the councilmen in Hartford. Our residential increase on an average is between 20 and 21%. Hartford's is 25% right now. I understand East Hartford, and I know these are cities that are much larger than ours. We don't have a whole lot in common, but East Hartford's is over 30% increase right now on their residential. And so we're not above the norm, but I'm going to try to get a better explanation just to try to let our folks know where we are and how that rationale works out. That's all I have, Paul.
Okay. I just one question on the E.O. Smith thing, because I have not been able to attend their budget stuff because of other obligations. Do you have any indication of how that actual overall budget is going? Are they looking to stay pretty close to last year, or a small increase?
I went to their initial budget meeting last week, and we don't have dollar amounts yet. I don't have a sense of that. We had general discussions, and that's where somebody brought up and said, who's at the plate this year? Because there's a 3-year cycle with that. And when I said I thought Ashford was, I was corrected by the chairman, who happens to be a representative for Mansfield, who said, no, it's their turn at bat. So I gladly relinquished that role.
Yeah,
but I don't have dollar amounts at this point. There's also one other thing, and as we're talking here, other things come to mind. Again, it's been a very busy week, and I've not had a chance because I don't have anything formal that I can put together. But as you know, we have a fire truck that's coming offline. Our new truck is in, and we expect, I'll leave that up to Paul. Maybe you can indicate when we anticipate that going online. But we are decommissioning a fire truck. It's an engine tank truck. It's got a capacity for water, I understand, of 1,000 gallons. And one of the ideas that we've had, and I know it's reflected in last year's budget, was to restore that truck and for our public works department and turn it into a sander slash plow truck. And we don't think the feasibility of that is going to work out. But because of the tornadoes and the devastation that went on down south, I've had some general discussions with the mayor of Mayfield, Kentucky. As late as today, I had discussions with the deputy fire chief of Mayfield, the city department, and comes to find out they have lost no equipment. They had 2 of their major firehouses totally destroyed, but luckily their equipment, with the exception of an ambulance that was severely damaged, they've not lost any of their main apparatus. However, they have several adjoining volunteer departments, and one of the chiefs called me today. They actually had 4 engine tank trucks in one of their firehouses, and their staff was called out to assist the city department when the storms first started hitting, and that particular house got devastated as well as their tanker trucks. And I don't know any of the particulars of it right now, but I know when I explained to them about what we're taking offline and we're going to have available in some way, they were very alert at that and very appreciative of the communication we're having. So I would assume by your next meeting, I'll be able to give you an update, whether or not it turns into anything or what we may be doing. But I think it's an opportunity for us to step up and help some brothers and sisters that are in some really devastating situations down there. And word is out on our truck anyway. I also heard from one of the fire departments down in Florida that apparently lost their vehicle, and they're working on a flatbed truck with a 500-gallon plastic water vessel to fight fires down there. So the word's out there, but I will report back to you as this matures more. But I'm hoping that we can help out a sister community that's dearly in need.
That would be great.
All right.
That's it, Paul. I'm sorry. I'll try not to think of anything else.
That's okay. You can think. Well, with that, you're going to come right back up to bat anyway, because the next item on the list is discussion and action on the request by the Board of Selectmen for an emergency appropriation not to exceed $70,000 for the purchase of a 2021 F-550 dump truck to replace the failing 2005 F-350 currently used to plow and maintain Ashford's unimproved roads. I don't know if, Bill, before we have any motions, if you want to just talk about why this is here.
Well, I did do a memorandum to you folks that I hope you all saw, dated January 24th, that gives you a brief breakdown, but just to sort of give you a synopsis of that and a quick breakdown. The 2005 vehicle that we have is probably the least dependable vehicle that we have, and we're actually down to 1 truck, with the exception of that truck, to do about 15 miles of unimproved roads. You know, it's ever more evident than with the storm coming up a day after tomorrow that we're going to have a problem. And in fact, this 2005 vehicle, I talked with our highway foreman at 6:30 this morning. It's down now. Our mechanics have been working on it all day. It wouldn't start, which is typical for this unit. You know, it's funny, that truck seems to do fine during the summer, but as soon as the temperature drops below freezing, it doesn't want to work. And that's been historic for the past several years. So anyway, in discussions with Joe Kalinowski, our highway foreman, he has been keeping his eye out for a replacement truck. And of course, we've been thinking about budgeting what our intention was originally, and this was last year, was to convert this fire truck that I've been talking to about a truck that we would refit with a new dump body and just go through the truck totally as much as we could. Again, you're still dealing with a truck that's approaching 20 years old. And we had talked about spending out of the non-reoccurring funds about $70,000 to refurbish that truck. It boils down to you end up with a truck still 20 years old that we're having trouble getting parts for, and replacing it with a 30-year-old truck that we're also having trouble getting parts for. And with that fire truck, we've had problems just as recently as last weekend. I think, Paul, it was a fuel pump or something.
Yeah.
So we think from a strategy point and for long-term planning, what Joe came up with, we found out that a local dealer has a truck on its lot right now, and it's this F550. It's a little bigger truck. We'll be able to get better utility out of it for our department doing its normal business. But it's more adapted to our dirt roads. And what's unique about it is that it's available. The only thing that has to be done is the hardware has to be put on. All the fittings and everything come factory ready. But the fittings for a new plow on it, and we have the plow already, has to be done. And what this transpires is once we get approval at a town meeting for this, if you folks are on the same page that we are, we can have that truck on the road within 24 to 48 hours. If we waited and decided to buy a new truck next year through the normal budget process, we're also advised, and we've checked with numerous dealers, not only aren't there comparable trucks available right now, it would probably take us a year to a year and a half to get a new truck in. So it's a unique situation that seems to be fitting an emergency situation that we were in, and I highly recommend and appeal to your board to approve the Board of Selectmen going to a town meeting. If you folks do decide tonight to make that approval, I'm calling a special meeting of the Board of Selectmen. I've already noticed in anticipation of that for tomorrow to set a town meeting so we can do this as expeditiously as we can. But forgive me for going on too long on that, but
Okay, you covered a lot of stuff, then I don't have to cover it.
okay. I'd be glad to address any questions anyone may have.
Well, I'd like to make a motion to approve the memorandum and purchase.
Okay, so that's, I'll note that, but Hugh, can I give you some specific wording? Because I did speak with Cheryl about it to make sure that we're covered with where the funds actually would come from.
Sure, of course,
so-
excuse me.
No, that's okay. No, I appreciate you making the motion because we have to have the motion to discuss it, but I want to make sure that it's correct so that we don't create a bigger problem for ourselves going down the road.
Certainly.
So, I'll read it and then you can, if you have a problem, let me know. The Ashford Board of Finance recommends to the Board of Selectmen to schedule a special town meeting for the approval of the appropriation of no more than $70,000 from SLFRF parentheses ARPA funds currently held by the town, or if deemed an inappropriate SLFRF ARPA expense, that the appropriations be made from the Ashford unassigned fund balance. And that's a change from what you have in print. From CNR, it would be from unassigned fund balance. I can explain that if you would like.
If I can just comment on that a little, Paul. Just to, what we're hoping to do, and I've been working all week on this, is to pay for this through ARPA funds. I've had meetings with several town managers and fellow first selectmen and at least one mayor. And I'm also working with CCM. It's an area that we're researching to see if these funds can be paid through our ARPA funds. Which I would recommend, and that's my preference, but we haven't got clarification. So the rationale between what Paul had worked out was with Cheryl gives us the opportunity, in case we get a negative response on that, being an appropriate charge off for ARPA, we have an alternative that we can go to without having to go through this all again. So thanks, Paul. I just wanted to touch on it.
So, Hugh, if that's okay, if you want to make the motion as read or something,
I'll make the motion as read.
John Kopak, second.
give me 1 second. All right, let's start. I'm sure somebody has a question. Go ahead, Christina.
So who gets to make the final determination whether this qualifies under ARPA? And I'm just going to say ARPA and not the SL.
That's fine.
That's
So
fine.
who decides that? Like, is there an attorney somewhere who's going to make a final declaration, or do we just cross our fingers and hope no one questions?
I wish there was. We originally got about a 400-page package from the U.S. Treasury Department, giving us all the guidelines and everything. We just recently, about a week and a half ago, we got a summary. They call it the final report or the final rule. There's still a lot of gray areas there. In my discussions with other municipalities, they think we have enough levity pretty much to do what we need. But I wish there was, Christina, a source we could go to and say, is ABC covered? Please let us know. But the whole system is not set up that way. So I don't want to use the word gamble. And that's why we're trying to do as much research to make sure we're relatively sure it's going to be covered. But the answer to your question is no. Unfortunately, there is not a source we can call and say, hey, is this F-550 truck for a public works department eligible?
Because the question, I see the part that is quoted in here, recipients can use funds on government services up to the revenue loss amount. And my understanding is that is basically to say, like, towns that lost revenue, tax revenue or other revenue due to the pandemic can recoup some of that and spend it on certain things.
Christina, in that 400-page document, about 10 of them talk about revenue loss formulas. And that is exactly what it does. It provides a formula for towns to figure out. But much like any other government stuff, the formula is lengthy and it's a pain.
Because to me, that seems like that's the main question, right? Like, did we even have revenue loss? I mean, my impression is
I got a report this week from our auditors, and we have not been able to verify what they've given us. They're showing that we have a hair over $1 million in revenue loss.
Oh,
And
okay.
we have not been able to reconcile that. And in talking, and I won't name them in particular, with a couple of the town managers of much larger towns than ours, they feel that that is a good reason and rationale why we will be covered on this dump truck situation. It gives us levity because we can document. And we didn't ask for this to be generated. As you know, our auditors represent a number of municipalities, and they put this together with us. And we've got that. Be glad to share it with you folks. I thought Cheryl was going to send that on to you. Perhaps you haven't got it yet.
No, we didn't get it. So,
okay. So far, last I talked to Cheryl, and we're kind of in the midst of a number of things right now, in addition to COVID. But we've kind of reconciled. The last I talked, somewhere over about 800,000. We have not been able to reconcile to their million. I don't quite understand it yet. Hopefully, I'll have a better explanation for you by the next meeting. Because from our tax revenues and everything, we have not taken a major hit.
the formula is really, it's very generic and very complex at the same time. It doesn't necessarily take into account actual revenue loss. So.
Right. But that's a good perception, Christina, because that is one of the things when we are, if and when we're asked to justify the truck, that is one of the things, of course, it's going to be at the top of that column.
Right. I mean, I think if if we can establish that there was a revenue loss, then you're totally covered, I think. But yeah, it's just a
yeah.
matter of backing that up.
I guess the big thing that we have in common is that last two words you said, I think. I feel the same. I wish I could say I'm sure, but I think you're right.
So, and that actually brings up the explanation about the unassigned fund balance. That's basically the backup to make sure that the truck would be covered if the ARPA funds were deemed not acceptable.
Correct.
And the reason for the change from capital non-recurring is because the Board of Finance has yet to move any funds from after the last audit to the CNR fund. And that will enable, if the town meeting approves it, it will enable the funds to be used immediately without having to move money around. Just as an aside, that CNR, for those people who've been on the board before, that move from unassigned funds to CNR will be probably on the next agenda for the remainder of those funds, or discussion about the remainder of those available funds. Because the capital improvement committee met last night, and that's part of our function. But for this specific purchase, this would allow it to be basically, as Bill said, if the town meeting approves the purchase, they can go ahead and get the truck without having to do any more. There'll be no more meetings to go to. It can be completed.
One other thing about that truck that I didn't say the last time, we priced and we talked to several dealers what the truck will probably be retailing for next year after the budget would be passed. And it's somewhere between $80,000 and $90,000. So the costs right now are I don't want to say it's a bargain because we're spending $70,000, but it's much less than what we'd be spending 6 months down the road from now.
Anybody else have any questions? I did go look at the truck that we're talking about replacing today. I went to the town garage. It's in really tough shape. So, I mean, I wish that we would have known about it ahead of time, so we're not having to do it this way, because this is not my favorite way to do things at all. But I think we kind of got backed into a corner here. One thing I talked with Joe Kalinowski, who it's actually, I knew he would not be here tonight to talk about it, because I saw him today. But one thing I've asked is, and was on the meeting last night as well, that we kind of look at a plan for some of these things. So maybe going forward, we're not hit with this. I mean, stuff happens. I get that. And I asked Bill when the letter first came out, my very first question was, why a 550? Because we're currently replacing a 350. One of the actual reasons is because there's no 350s to be had that meet the requirements for municipalities. And I did research this morning. My son thought I was looking for a new truck for myself. So does anybody have any other questions or comments?
Yes, this is Jesse. I got two questions, actually.
Go ahead, Jesse.
All right, first one is the truck that needs a replacement, is that the one that Joe typically drives, the red pickup truck?
No, this
Okay.
is a Mason dump. It's a 1-ton. Oh, I should, first of all, before I say that, all the trucks are 350 or better. There's no F-250. So, and that's done, I'm sure, for weight purposes and durability. But no, this is a Mason dump. So if you're familiar with what it's a 1-ton dump truck. It's a dual wheel 1-ton dump truck.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's not Joe's pickup.
All right. The second question I had, and/or really a suggestion, I know it's been very common recently that if you buy a brand new truck, you can have it undercoated, which then ends up protecting the frame and the entire underside of the truck. But it's one of those things that has to be done almost immediately before rust from salt really can get into it, because once the salt gets in there, it's too late. So I was just wondering, is the 70,000 enough to possibly consider that? So that way it would be a longer lasting rather than.
Jesse, I can ask Joe that, and I agree. I think that's, and I'm glad you call that to our attention. That's something I'll ask him to arrange. If for some reason that 70 doesn't cover it, I'll have him covered under another line item in his budget and just let us know.
Okay.
That's actually a great point, Jesse. I didn't think of that either.
I didn't either.
And we just had the new fire truck. We had the new fire truck done that was part of our spec package.
What did it cost you on that truck? Do you know?
I do not know.
Okay.
That's a little bit, I mean, that's a big F7
Yeah.
or whatever, F70 Freightliner cab chassis. So, but we also had the whole entire body done as well before they put it on the frame. So.
Good idea, Jesse. Anything else?
Yeah, my preference is always for used equipment. I hate taking the depreciation hit on new. But in this case, if you tried to get this used, it would be more than this truck is new. Not to mention you can't get it. So I looked at the price of that and I was amazed because I just priced out a new F350, no frills, nothing on it, and that was $53,000. So this, you're getting a lot more capacity and a dump for not that much more money. I think it's a great price for what we're getting.
Yeah, John, I actually went and talked to Joe because I was asking about the 550, 350 comparison. And one of the things was that because of the municipality aspect of it, they get some better pricing on the actual bigger trucks. So, because I had just done the same thing. I'm looking for a possible replacement for my 3,500. And, I was like, well, I'm looking at a $55,000 to $60,000 truck. How are you getting a 550 for basically 10 grand more? So.
Yeah. It's
Anybody?
amazing. I had the same truck that we're replacing and my frame just failed.
Yeah. Welcome to the Northeast. Go ahead, Christina.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate, I think what you said, Paul, that it is reasonable moving forward to try to plan these things out. When I participated in the CCM workshop this past weekend on budgeting with the current mayor of East Hartford, and he was the financial manager for many years, if anybody else participated, I thought he had a lot of great insights. And one of the things he said is that it's totally reasonable to do not only just a 5-year capital plan, but a 10-year capital plan. And he specifically mentioned how for East Hartford, where they have a police department and they have police cars, that he, has averages of what the wear and tear on those police cars is. And he knows every year how many cars are going to come offline and that are going to need to be replaced. And so I would think it's reasonable to do the same exercise with public works vehicles so that we don't get surprised.
The town does have a 5-year plan, and I don't know. I've never been on the capital committee, sat on the committee, so that's part of it obviously has to change every year. So, and sometimes, and in the case of this truck, I do know because of the discussions that we had that it was that, like Bill said, the original intention was to use the funds to refurb the older fire truck, and then because of it really doesn't fit. And one of the things is that, the F550 is a 4-wheel drive, and we're using it they're using it on unimproved roads. The old fire truck is a 2-wheel drive, a much larger frame. It would need a lot of work to make it a usable vehicle for what they actually need. But yeah, that is something that, there was a lot of discussion at the meeting last night about the capital plan and moving forward and looking a little bit further down the road. Because that helps if we can do that and get that in place, then it helps the Board of Finance and it helps the Board of Selectmen to look as we move forward.
Just to add to that a little, Christina, back in the 90s, early 90s, we're going back at least 3 highway foremans ago, we developed a 10-year plan with our roads. Just because my first year as first selectman, the easy hit on, and I'm not taking a swipe at the Board of Finance, but Board of Finances, But the easy hit is always to defer maintenance with our public works department. So we can put that road off a year. We can get another 2 years out of that truck or this truck. When I took office, I actually ended up with one dump truck to do about 60 miles of road. It got so bad during my first winter, I had to call Governor Weicker, and he actually was kind enough to lend us 4 state vehicles with the drivers, maintained our roads until we could buy 3 vehicles on a lease to purchase deal that I set up in order to start maintaining our own roads. And it taught me a very valuable lesson, is that by the nature of our public works departments, we have to plan ahead. It's easy to cut and defer maintenance or defer jobs, but it does come back to bite you. And I agree totally. The better planning that we can do on a 5 or even better yet, a 10-year plan, the better off the community is.
Is that
Alright,
why
anybody else?
Is that why Weicker put in the income tax, was because Ashford needed?
Because Ashford used their
It
truck.
probably is. It probably is. Blame us.
All right, any more discussion on this, the motion for the 550? If not, all in favor of the motion, and do you want me to reread it so we have clarity, or is everybody? All right, so just so we're sure. The Ashford Board of Finance recommends to the Ashford Board of Selectmen that they schedule a special town meeting asking approval of the appropriation of no more than $70,000 from SLFRF ARPA funds currently held by the town, or if it is deemed an inappropriate SLFRF ARPA expense, that the appropriation be made from the Ashford's unassigned fund balance. So there it is. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Jesse, did you say aye?
I did say aye.
Okay, and aye. So the motion passes unanimously.
Excellent.
Thank you, folks.
I don't live on a dirt road, so I won't see the truck. All right, next item on the agenda, the fiscal year 2020 to 2021 annual report review. Jesse, have you gotten anything?
Just to clarify, should that be? No, sorry, take that back. That is right. 20.
I do it. I do the same thing every time I look at it, so don't feel bad.
It's actually very exciting to say that many reports have been coming in.
Good. Well, I know I just sent 2 to you. So.
And I was very glad to see the fire department and the fire marshal's report. So
All right.
I haven't gone through like on my list, like to check off which ones have come in and haven't come in, but
Okay.
I'd say we're a little better than half already. So I've never gotten many this quickly. So that's really
No,
good.
Cheryl said that she just got a couple of budgets today. So hopefully those people will also get those reports in. Yeah, I know those 2 were a little behind, but it from the fire department and fire marshal's office, because I was standing behind them with a cattle prod. So. Does anybody have any questions? Jesse and John and Angie and John have been on here and probably know what we're talking about, but Christina or Hugh, do you have any questions about? All right. So next on the list then is agenda items for the February 10th meeting. I know right off the get-go, the Board of Education non-lapsing fund, that policy, and more than likely action on moving some funds from the unassigned fund balance back to their non-lapsing fund will be at least on the agenda. And then, as I mentioned, the possible discussion and movement of funds from the unassigned fund balance to the capital non-recurring fund for the funding of capital expenditures. I don't know of anything else. We might ask Jesse if he gets any more reports. Does anybody else have anything that on the top of their head that they? Want?
Paul, the only thing that I could think of, I think we think hard enough, we can come up with more stuff, but is possible discussion on what we're going to be doing with the old fire truck.
Okay. And I'll probably talk to you tomorrow or Monday, Bill, but the radio people were here yesterday to do their spec work to see what they need to do to move the radios in. And that's kind of the holdup. Everything else is kind of,
Okay.
once that happens, we can get it moved. But like everything else, it's an enormous backup. And more than anything, it's a parts problem.
Yeah. Unfortunately, with everything we're dealing with.
So, and actually we ordered in that purchase, there was a couple of new items for the truck that have yet to arrive as well, but that it doesn't make it non-functional. We can use the old items. We just wanted to replace them to bring it up to date. So,
Okay. Very good.
but Angie, did you have your hand up or were you just waving? Okay. All right, then we'll go to remarks for the good of the board.
I do want to say something.
Go ahead.
I just appreciate everybody's comments and giving information and questions and answers and all the work that everybody does. So thank you very much. I just listened because it's a good thing that I do that.
Input is good though. You have to have some input sometimes.
Yeah.
It can be hard when it's if it's not something you're familiar with. So
Right.
asking questions is good too.
Yep.
I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
I put together a little spreadsheet because I like spreadsheets. After the session.
I
You
lost.
just got muted.
Yeah, I lost you there.
You're muted.
How about now? Hello?
Something happened. I can
Something
barely
happened.
hear.
It's like, no, barely hear you. No. Nope. Totally muted. All right.
She thinks it's a conspiracy.
It's not. It's yeah.
Put your mute on and off.
Your comments in or something?
Yeah,
Could you
you can
email your
email it.
comments in,
You can
Christina?
email something directly to me, Christina, and yeah,
No,
nothing. It faded, and now it's nothing.
Mike, can you help with that? Maybe Mike's not listening.
There's not much I can do on my end.
Are you showing her as muted or anything?
No, her mic is open, but sometimes if there's background,
Okay.
the mic
Yeah,
will
it's-
try to adjust and it'll fade her out.
It's really weird. It was fine, and then it just went to like almost nothing, and now there's absolutely nothing. So, all right. Like I said, Christina, if you want to email and to me or to Judy, and we can put it into the comments. So, all right.
Include it in the minutes.
So I don't have anything other than thanks for everybody being here and taking this on without Judy present. I know she appreciates it, and everybody stay safe in the snowstorm we're about to get.
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a
Motion
second?
to adjourn.
I got you, Hugh. I have a
Aye.
motion to adjourn. Well, I need a second for the motion first.
Jesse Burnham, second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good night, Chris.
Have a
Thank you
great
very
night.
much.